in the end, I totally agree with you. It is about being dancing and moving back. How soon, how quickly, how frequently can you move back into that space of the higher love, of the forgiveness, of the I am beautiful and I am part of the God divinity, and my wound isn't my wound from that particular thing is so small compared
Right.
to this immenseness.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. To have that beautiful, to know both. Because if you only know the little I, if that's the pure self-awareness, if that's all you're aware of, you're not even aware of the divine nature, the witnessing perspective. Right, then how easy is it then it's just, that's all you've got. I have been wounded. And now we have this beautiful ability to say, this experience is arising within this humanness. But I know who I really am. I know who I truly am. And now I can perhaps explore this and explore the hurt and explore the sense of wounding and get more clear about what's really true about it, how much of it is really true. And what is it that just got wounded? And there's an interesting dynamic, and it's not a spiritual bypass, but there is a very positive dynamic in being able to recognize truly, this is the meditation of inquiry, what really just got wounded.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, we really can start to look at, if we're, again, not avoiding it, not pushing it away, not just floating off into the, yeah, but I'm not that. No, I'm having this human experience. But let me be honest about the human experience. Let me be authentic. Let me bring my authenticity. My pain, my fear is actually not authentic to the isness of me, the pure divinity of me. But it is occurring here. So let me bring my authenticity to bear, to witness what actually just got offended, hurt, disrespected, abandoned, betrayed, and can feel like it hurts so much. And then to realize that primarily my construct has been wounded. I'm conditioned in a certain way. I've got a past. So this event had a certain poignancy primarily because of my construct, who I've built myself to be. But there it is, and it's happening. But it doesn't claim us so much, because we can now look at it from our authentic nature and hold the space, hold the loving witnessing space, saying, I am the eternal, that within which all this comes and goes and rises and falls and is born and dies, and this experience has come. But now I can really look at it and we can really feel into it and say, now what's really happening? And what's the I that I'm saying has been so wounded? So that we don't have to, perhaps, because ideally, right, we wouldn't want to just have that same, it happened, I honored it, I respect it, and there it is, and I had to write the letter, or they had to write the letter, and there it is. But then a month later, it happens again, and the same reaction, and now another letter. Now another letter has to be written, and another thing. At some level, this whole life is this opportunity to become more and more aware of who we really are and who we're not. And that is not to be the spiritual bypass, but it is ultimately the opportunity to say, I am. What am I really? I am the infinite loving awareness, and I am not the temporary experience. I can have a temporary experience, but if I identify less and less with that as who I am, then I can be with it. I can be more loving with all the experiences that come and go, because I am the love more than I am the pain. My love is more authentic to me than my pain. My love is more authentic to me than my hate. My hate is born out of my conditioning. My love is more authentic to me. My peace is actually more authentic to me than my anxiety. Now, people will say, I'm being authentic. I'm telling you that I'm really anxious. Well, you're being truthful, yes. But that's not actually authentic to you. That was born out of your conditioning. It's not authentic to you. Your peace is authentic to you. Your love is authentic to you. Your compassion is authentic to you. Your witnessing is authentic to you. These other things come and go. So yeah, I like that. It gives us a beautiful opportunity to witness our experience and perhaps be more authentic with it than just, the classic triggered again and again.
And it comes to surrender. I mean, it keeps going back to surrender and being present, right? Mm-hmm. Because through communication with that person or that situation, sometimes you can heal those, you can heal the situation. You have a good conversation, you come to kind of equal grounds on it, and we hug each other. The bygones, big bygones. But we when you can't, but most wounds come from some violation of a relationship, some type of relationship you had with someone or something.
Right.
And when you can't work through it that way, then in the end, really, to find joy and peace, what I have found is just surrender. Because
what gets surrendered?
Surrender the need to have your little I or the little me validated, or
which is to surrender the identification with the little I, right?
Yeah, it's surrender, and it's not just to surrender, but it's to surrender and step into love. So like that person, you might just say, that person's throwing darts at me constantly. I've tried to talk to them. I wrote the letter, whatever it was, and it's not happening. I mean, no matter what you're doing, it's not happening. So I have found that the ultimate surrender, because I then can just live in resentment over that, or hurt, or whatever. Or I can just say, I've done everything I can do. I'm going to surrender my need to fix the other person, my need to maybe make things smooth even, my need to be validated, and just show up and say, I love you, step into that big love. I love you. I may choose not to have you in my life anymore because it might be so caustic.
Sure. But we want to choose what's resonant with truth, right? We want to make sure that what's around us, what we surround ourselves with.
But we continue to love that person. We can continue to stay in that high resonance, even if the resonance truly there, that vibration is not healthy.
Yeah. I like that. So when we surrender, for me, the experience is less I surrender and then I choose to step into love. It's in the surrender. The love is already there. There's no choosing or action necessary. It's just, right? It's just...
Yeah, so the surrender is letting go.
I've let go of the illusion. Ego. Exactly. And boom, there it was. Oh, it was there all along. Yeah.
I just was fighting it because I had this need to...
And what is it that makes it so that the exact same betrayal, dishonoring, whatever the thing is that felt out of resonance that we want to rectify or heal? What is it that makes it so that when it happens to me, in the exact situation, or it happens to you, or it happens to you, or it happens to anyone else, that it's always different? That it's not the exact same, you talk to somebody about it, so-and-so did this, and they're going, or another person's going, oh my God, right? All these different shades of experience. What makes the difference? It points to the fact that what has just happened does not have any actual inherent truth in it itself. We decide, we make up based on our conditioning, based on our attachment to how abandoned we feel or how empty we feel or unloved or whatever the story, our narrative is, our particular narrative, isn't that what makes the difference? And if we're not so attached to that narrative and more aligned with our divine nature from the get-go, then perhaps the experience doesn't even have quite the impact it did in the first place.
Yeah, or the history of all the attachments. So I'm abandoned here. Oh yeah, and I was abandoned before, and I was abandoned before that.
Yeah.
So it brings up that whole string
Yeah.
of abandonment. So it's how
yeah.
many times we have attached to it that way.
Yeah.
And carried it with us.
And where does it get? I love these things. Carried it with us. Where? In what form does it get carried with us? In our narrative, in our continually building construct of who I am, all the ways I've been abandoned, all the way I've been hurt, all the ways I've been. And from that witnessing perspective, I mean, I agree, we don't want to simply disappear there and none of this has any impact. But to be honest, it just has less and less and less impact because it's not me. It's happening to my idea of self that I've built in my head that has certain conditions where the things have to work a certain way in order for my idea of love or my idea of belonging or my idea of approval is met. It's so beautiful to have things happen and go,
Okay.
I don't know if it's his originally, but Adyashanti, he was such a beautiful teacher, shared a teaching once that I loved, which is, what is happening? No, what is? The idea of what is. You know, if we hear, just be with what is. Well, what does that mean? And his definition is what is what is happening just before you have a thought about it. Right? Mm-hmm. Just before we bring our conditioning to it. Just before we bring our self-reference to it. Our small self-reference to it. What if we bring our divine self-reference to it from the get-go? That's who I am, primarily. I do have a history, I do have some stories and some narratives, but more and more those are playing a less predominant role. So that I can be the love, so I can be the divine skill set that I have, so I can be the soul signature that I am so much more purely and clearly and cleanly in collaboration and in alignment with the divine and less muddled in my whole story. From my perspective, I am that. That's actually more of who I am than this person who can be so wounded or betrayed or hurt, or because I spent most of my life worrying about. That's where the anxiety came from. That's where the suffering came from. Was all the sense of I am this thing that is trying to make sure I create a world that doesn't fuck with me. You know, that doesn't mess with me in these ways that I can't handle being messed with because of my construct. Finally, I'm in this space of just like whatever, fuck with me. I don't care. It's just not me anymore. So it is an interesting dance. This idea of not escaping the human experience, but also not being so identified with it as the core nature of who I am. It's actually secondary for me. It's I'm the vehicle, primarily.
So there's that detachment, but then, looking at yourself and saying, am I in this detachment it's in that egoic realm that's leading to isolation detachment? Well, that person is always mean to me, and I'd really like them in my life, but they're always throwing darts at me, therefore I'm just not going to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to step away, and I'm going to go say my prayers, and I'm going to go, do my meditation, and I'm just going to... Mm-hmm. I think that sometimes what's really happening there is an isolation in that small I. And you truly do want that person in your life, and you truly do want... I'm talking like a lot of like family members, these things that occur in families where or friends. There can be many different levels, but
Mm-hmm.
these closest relationships,
Right.
you know, and the heart wants to be connected to those people, want them
Right.
in your life, but it's just that line, that how do you, it's that practice of really understanding where
Mm-hmm.
you're at. If you're in the little I isolation spot, or if you're in the big I, I'm still moving toward you, I'm still embracing you, I'm still inviting you, I'm still reaching out to you, I'm still sending you love. But there's an awareness that there's a disconnect or a resonance that's not happening.
Mm-hmm. You point to
Something
the
that's not in sync,
right. Because the one who isolates, I think the myth is, the feeling is, well, you've isolated in your divinity, you've isolated in your spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually the small I that has claimed the spirituality, who has claimed and calls itself the divinity, but it's still the small I.
That's the bypass version.
That's the bypass version,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
When we can recognize the true and abide in the true nature of the spiritual self, if we really want that person in our lives, then there is absolutely no need to isolate whatsoever.
You kind of set the playing field. Like, I have people like that. I'm here, but not like that. If you're going to do that,
Mm-hmm.
you can't come here. But I'm here if you come respectfully. I'm here, but not with all that. And that's loving them. To be more, respectful. Or,
I'm not taking it as personally anymore.
it's really worked with Clint.
Mm-hmm.
That we're just, I'm here, but not like that. And he wants that love and that presence, so he figures out how to
Shift it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Play it a different way. Interact a different way.
do it with my kids too. I'm not
Vibrate.
doing that. I'm always here, but I'm not doing that. Power struggle. They're going to get me that way. And then they learn that doesn't work with her. And I want her attention. So I show them, here's a healthy way to get it. Not getting it that way.
Yeah.
And they go, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'll try this. You know?
Yeah.
You'll often hear a panic that comes up in when one is surrendering and asks to surrender, and they're surrendering all the ideas they've ever had of themselves, who they built themselves up to be, the image of self. And you're saying, if you really wanted to know the true nature of self, let that go, surrender it completely. And it isn't so that it will always be gone. It's just so that this true knowing of self can become more cultivated, more mature, more grounded. Then the small me, the persona of me that we live with, can come back into proper relationship. But we put it down completely so that we might finally go, okay, so what's there? What's always, always, always there when I completely let go of any idea I've ever had of myself and be in complete divine service of being the pure infinite awareness of the one consciousness, and just be the awareness without any construct of self. I am that. Now this can come back into play and have a much more proper relationship rather than being the leading wounded role out into the world. And you'll often hear the panic of people they'll start to let that go, and they'll even see them in a meditation go, like, whoa, 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 I can't let that disappear. Mm-hmm. And the feeling is, because how would I make decisions? How would I react? How would I know how to react? Who would be there to have relationships? Who would be there to have interactions? And the beautiful thing is that what we learn is you will react more authentically than you ever have in your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's no longer the conditioned self that is reacting. It's actually the divine love that you know you are, first and foremost, meeting the experience. And that's what responds to the experience. And it could respond very honestly and say, no, not that. That's not gonna work here. It's not invited. It's not resonant with truth.